A new video project lands on your desk. You've got a tight deadline, a specific goal, and a choice to make. Do we hand this to our internal team, or do we bring in an external video production agency? In most enterprise environments, that choice is driven by one thing, the line item cost. But choosing a route based solely on the budget is exactly how marketing directors end up with a backlog of unfinished projects, and worse, content that can accidentally damage the brand. There are actually three factors: complexity, risk, and bandwidth that matter just as much as the price tag. If you ignore them, you risk burning out your internal team on projects they weren't built for, and while good enough content usually passes a compliance check, it can often fail the brand reputation test. At Oak & Rumble, we've spent 12 years embedded with enterprise teams in insurance and finance, and we've seen firsthand that the most successful marketing teams aren't the ones who do everything in-house. They're the ones who have a clear framework for deciding which resources to deploy where. This is our internal versus external matrix, designed to help make the decision of working in-house or with a production agency much less overwhelming. Before we jump into it, I do want to say this is not an us versus your internal team video. Your internal team has an intimate understanding of your products and compliance hurdles that no other agency can replicate. But they're also facing an onslaught of daily requests. This framework is about protecting their time for the work that they were built for, while identifying where an external production partner can step in to provide the specialized polish that elevates your brand's presence in the market. How do you leverage the advantages of both? The matrix is built like this. Production complexity sits on the y-axis, and brand risk sits on the x-axis. We're starting with the top left quadrant: higher complexity, low risk. This is a massive gray area for marketers. These are technically demanding projects, but with lower external exposure. We're talking about things like multi-episode thought leadership series, long-form educational programs, internal platform launches, or like large webinar programs. Because the risk is low, these almost always land on the internal team's desk. But just because the risk is low doesn't mean it's easy. The decision here depends entirely on the maturity and skill set of your internal team. I've seen some internal teams that are incredibly capable of projects in this category. In enterprise environments, the smartest move you can make as a marketer is to have a candid conversation with your in-house video production manager. They're usually very open about what their team can realistically handle and the bandwidth they have. If you do decide to go internal, I'd watch for three things: inconsistent quality over a long series, team burnout, and weak storytelling or pacing. Something that might actually work for you is a hybrid option. You hire an agency to build the creative format, the visual system, and the templates, then you hand that professional framework over to your in-house team to run the day-to-day production. That way you can prevent your internal team from getting bogged down in the how, so they can stay focused on the why. But this next quadrant is where it gets dangerous. What do you do when a project looks incredibly simple on paper, but the person watching that video is your investors or your biggest tier 1 prospect? This is the lower complexity, high risk quadrant. On the surface, these look like easy wins for an internal team, but the risk to your brand authority is at its peak. We're talking about video projects like homepage hero videos, executive positioning, investor-facing content, or a major marketing repositioning announcement. This quadrant is where risk should be your biggest deciding factor. The trap here is assuming that lower complexity means in-house. In reality, internal teams are often so underwater with daily requests that they're forced to turn away work or rush a project that requires meticulous polish. Agencies matter here because of messaging precision and stakeholder alignment. When you're dealing with the board or a market shift, you need absolute control over brand perception. Sometimes good enough is the biggest risk you can take. Choosing a partner for lower complexity, high-risk projects is about buying an insurance policy for your brand's reputation. It allows your internal team to keep the core content engine running while ensuring your most visible assets have the attention and polish they deserve. With those gray areas settled, we're moving into the territory where the decision between internal and external becomes much more black and white. What happens when the project is too big to fail and requires a scale of production that sits outside of your team's daily infrastructure? This is the top right quadrant, higher complexity and high risk. This is where agencies really earn their keep. We're talking about national campaigns, major product launches, rebrands, and high-budget paid media that requires specialized crew and massive logistical management. When you have dozens of internal stakeholders and a larger budget to manage, you're looking for a production machine designed for that specific scale. We've managed campaigns that require over 100 different assets for a single launch. From bilingual cutdowns to specific platform experts, handling all that volume while keeping everything brand accurate is a massive, massive job. You need a partner to own that staggering logistical weight so you can stay focused on the actual success of the campaign. Remember, you aren't just paying for a video. You're investing in a system that guarantees the result. An external partner provides the stability needed to navigate the stakeholder approvals and the technical scale so the project crosses the finish line smoothly. So with the higher complexity and high-stakes projects sorted, what actually becomes the home turf for your internal experts? Well, that's the bottom left quadrant, lower complexity and low risk. These are the keep the engine running videos, and this is where an internal team provides the highest value to the organization. We're talking about LinkedIn thought leadership clips, internal comms, product walkthroughs, sales enablement, and small to medium scale webinar recordings. These videos are essential. Doing these consistently is how you maintain brand presence, trust, and authority in the day-to-day. Your internal team has an intimate familiarity with the subject matter and can offer the fast turnaround times these projects require. Because the brand risk is lower, you can prioritize speed and volume. If you don't have an internal team, this is where you should look for a partner that offers a done-for-you content engine. Someone who can plug into your workflow and handle this steady stream of content without the overhead of a flagship production. If you need to keep that content engine turning without managing the day-to-day production yourself, our Acorn and Rumble engine is built to own that entire process for you. The link to that is in the description below. Now, even with the matrix at your disposal, you're still going to have projects that sit right on the line. To make those final decisions, there's 3 additional layers you should consider. Think of these layers as your tiebreakers. They're longevity, distribution, and stakeholders. When you aren't sure if a project stays in-house or goes to a partner, run it through these 3 filters. The first is longevity. How long is a video meant to work for you? If it's a short-form update, prioritize internal speed. But if it's an evergreen asset that needs to represent the brand for years, it might justify an agency's polish. The second layer is distribution. Where's it living? Organic channels might favor internal production. Meanwhile, if you're putting paid media dollars behind a project, a partner focused on the specific performance goals might be a better bet. Finally, look at your stakeholders. How many people need to sign off? If the feedback loop is simple, keep it close. But if you're navigating a complex web of executives and compliance, an agency acts as the neutral project manager to manage those opinions and protect your team from the friction. These layers ensure your resources match the actual weight of the project. It's about having the confidence to know exactly when to lean on your internal team and when to bring in a partner. So you now have a framework to decide who builds your content. But the who doesn't matter if you're building the wrong assets. Most teams are playing within a system of outdated best practices, unfortunately. Meanwhile, some top-tier marketing teams we work with have already pivoted. In our next video, we break down exactly how these leaders are outpositioning the competition. If you want to see inside the 2026 video playbooks of top finance and insurance marketing teams, I'll see you there.